Hi, Thomas from Field Tennis. If you lack power and smoothness on your ground strokes, then you may be missing on one of the universal laws of physics or biomechanics that applies to all ground strokes. So if I hit one forehand, and I hit one-handed backhand, and I hit a two-handed backhand, then they look very, very different from each other, and yet they share one universal swing path, one universal law of physics and biomechanics that allows us to accelerate the racket very effortlessly.
All the pros use the universal swing path on all strokes, whether that's a forehand, one-handed backhand, or a two-handed backhand. Of course, some use it more and some use it less, but they all use it. And by universal swing path, I mean a sideways swing path that you may not have noticed until now. I'll explain now how this swing path happens and how to learn it, and I'll come back to Federer and Nadal once you understand this concept better.
The idea that I'm going to show you today has been inspired by my good friend Mili Velkovic, from whom I have learned a lot of very good and effective ways of teaching tennis, especially to adults and juniors. Mili is very big on swings, and he has very unique ways of teaching tennis. Please check Mili's website. I'm going to give you a link to his channel and see what magic he can do with players. So let me go on. The idea of a universal swing path starts like this. If I just stand and I swing my arm and my racket like a pendulum, so all the time think about swings and pendulums in this video. So just imagine all the time we're talking about swings and pendulums. So if I swing my racket like this, you see I'm not holding it very tight so that you can see it's just swinging. And if I don't turn my body, then it's going to go in a straight line. When I start to turn my body, the racket starts to go in a number 8. And so this happens quite automatically because the rotation of my body is starting to swing my arm away from the body, and then my arm comes closer to the body, and as I rotate, the arm goes away from the body again. So body rotations make the arm swing away from the body. So the same goes for one-handed backhand. See, if I rotate my hips and I just simulate a little bit my backhand, you can see that this automatically happens. Now when we do this, what we create is we create a little centrifugal force. We create a little circle here, and this creates a centrifugal force that wants to accelerate the racket, or it does accelerate the racket when I rotate my hips. And so we need to swing outwards and not backwards. We need always to swing outwards. And when we swing outwards, the racket will automatically swing back, and then as we rotate the body, the racket will swing inside out. Perhaps you have heard of the idea of swinging inside out from some coaches, but you didn't really know where does that come from. So the swinging inside out, the inside out swing, happens automatically, very naturally, if we first swing outwards in the backswing. So if we swing outwards and I go like this, you can see that my racket wants to go in a circle. And so as I swing outwards, the racket comes here, and I rotate my hips, the racket automatically goes first outwards and then over like this. So same on the backhand, it goes outwards. Same two-handed backhand. If I go outwards, the racket comes inwards automatically. As I rotate my hips, the racket will be swung outwards in an inside-out swing path. So all that happens very naturally, just based on laws of physics. And I want to show you a very simple way of learning this universal swing path. The easiest way to learn this swing path is just to put the racket down on the ground, because the racket, the shape of the racket, gives us a perfect visual image of the swing path. Namely, what we have to do is we have to follow the racket's frame. So first we swing outwards, we follow the frame, then it will automatically swing around, our arm will swing around, and then we are going to start swinging inside out, and then we just have to go forwards, because on every stroke we have to give the ball some forward momentum in order to give it direction. So we cannot just swing in a circle. we use this circle here to generate momentum, to create a centrifugal force, which is going to help us accelerate the racket when we rotate the hips. And so just your tennis racket is the perfect training aid for learning the universal swing path. Just follow the racket with the hand, swing the arm, relax, and go outward, inward, forward. This way, forward. This way, forward. And just make sure that you're rotating your hips. This way, forward. So first try just with the hand, just see that you follow the racket path. Of course, this applies to backhand and forehand, so if I go on this side, I can practice backhand. So from ready position, I go outward always, I follow the frame of the racket, I go outward, inward, straight. This way, straight. This way, straight. With two hands, the same. This way, straight. Outward, inward, then we create inside-out swing automatically when we rotate the hips. Our arms will be flung outwards if we're relaxed enough, and then we need to give the ball just the direction. So here's the same exercise from a bit further away that you see how it goes. So what I want to do is I want to swing my arm outwards. I want to relax my arm, I want to swing my arm outwards. Then if I'm relaxed enough, my arm will automatically come around, it's going to swing around. And when it's somewhere around here, I rotate my hips, and then my arm will be automatically swung outwards, the inside-out swing path, which I then have to modify a little bit to hit the ball forward. And so this way, and forward. So this happens very naturally. So I'm just following the shape of the racket, and I imagine the shape outward, the swing is always outward. Then if we're relaxed, the arm comes around, we rotate the hips. That's how we create an inside-out swing path, which we then modify a little bit so that the arm goes straight, that it doesn't go like this, for example. So on every ball, we need some extension, we need to stay with the ball. We want to keep the ball on the strings a little bit longer in order to give the ball good control and good direction. So that's the exercise first, just with the hand. And then you try the same with the racket. You go outward, inward, forward. This way. You can see this is the basic swing path of a forehand if we're just looking from this plane. So we're not looking now in this plane, we're just looking in this plane on the ground from top-down view, like drone view. How does the hand and the racket move? So it moves like this. The racket does not move back forward. It does not move back forward. It always moves outward in order to create this centrifugal force. And just here I have to give the ball some direction, whether I play down the line or I play cross court, I have to give the ball direction. But I accelerate the arm and the racket in a very natural way by using the universal swing path principle. So I always swing outwards, I relax. Here the racket comes around and I can easily accelerate it. And the same goes for one-handed backhand and two-handed backhand. So from ready position, I don't go this way with the backhand. I always go outward a bit, outward. I go like this and forward. So I go outward, my arm swings automatically this way. If it's relaxed enough, you relax, and forward. This way and forward. This way and forward. So it's very similar to throwing the ball. Let me try one. So you can see if I'm doing this way, then throwing the ball like this is very natural. That's probably what you would do. You would swing and throw the ball like this. You wouldn't throw the ball like this. You wouldn't go back. You would probably create a little swing here and throw the ball. And the same goes for one-handed backhand. You wouldn't throw the ball like this, but you would very naturally and easily throw the ball by doing a swing like this. Like this. So this is the principle, the law of physics or the law of biomechanics on which all ground strokes are based. And so for one-handed backhand you can practice this movement, just swing around the racket and forward, and then the same with the racket, swing around, forward, swing around and forward. And for two-handed backhand, I see a lot of mistakes when players just go this way and they never go a bit outward. And so if you do not go outward, you will not have this effect, you will not create a nice natural swing, and you will lose on very effortless power. And so when you swing outward a bit, then your arms, if they're relaxed enough, they're gonna come here, then you will have an inside-out swing, which you then direct into a straight line for a short time to give the ball direction. So outward, inward, straight.
Special thanks to Brad from Slow Motion Tennis for letting me use his videos for this analysis. Please visit his channel for more slow motion footage of the pros. So now that you're aware of this outward-inward swing path, can you see it in the ground strokes of the pros? You can see that all pros swing more or less outwards and circle around. Monfils and Gasquet, for example, use this principle of the outward swing and around in a circular manner quite a lot, especially on their forehands, but it exists also in their backhands. Nadal, of course, swings outwards too in the beginning, but his forehand technique is very unique and I don't recommend copying it. The one that I could blame, well, just kidding, for not making this universal swing path more obvious is Roger Federer, because he uses just a little bit of it in most cases on his forehand, since he uses a lot of wrist lag, body rotation and perfect timing to hit the ball well. But if you watch carefully, you will see occasions where the universal outward swing path is very obvious, like in the case of this inside-out forehand. And because Federer's forehand is probably the most analyzed forehand online, players and coaches are missing the fundamentals of the forehand technique that they need to be learned first before the player possibly evolves his forehand further into his preferred style. If you watch this video to the end, I'll show you how I teach a 10-year-old boy the fundamentals of the forehand technique through this universal swing path principle, and how we have corrected his technique with it, and how effortlessly he hits forehands now.
If you follow my videos for a while, then you know that one of the videos I did was a comparison between Simona Halep and Roger Federer and the way they drop the racket from their initial preparation phase and what the differences are. And so Simona goes more like this with the edge down or with the edge back, and then Federer goes with the face down. And what I noticed is that after that video, players ask me for advice, they send me their videos about the way they drop the racket. And I realized they didn't see the 3 dimensions of a stroke, of the backswing. Because that video is recorded from the side, those videos of Halep and Federer, they're recorded from the side. So the only thing you see is the drop of the racket in this plane. And so you're just looking at whether the racket goes in the drop like this or it goes like this, and then what happens afterwards. And so what happened when people were looking at the video from the side is that they thought, or you might still think, is that when we go in the backswing like this, is that we just drop like this. So either like this on the edge or like this. And you don't see that the stroke happens in another plane, in another dimension. So it's not just up and drop. That's just one plane. There is another plane, and that's the outward plane. And so all ground strokes, they always go outwards, they circle around, and then they go forward. So they go outwards, then they come around here, then they have a slight swing path inside out, and then they go straight for a while, or sometimes when there's a lot of stop spin, the stroke goes quickly over. And so I realized that players missed that part of the information. They were looking at the stroke only in 2 dimensions, just up and down, and nothing to the side. And so this universal swing path is very, very important, because I see a lot of players not using it, not knowing that it exists. So all tennis strokes, all ground strokes, they always start outwards in order to create centrifugal force with which we accelerate the racket when we rotate the body, and we automatically create an inside-out swing path that is accelerating the racket, and after that we give the ball some direction. And so the swing path and the drop of the racket does not happen just in this plane. It happens in a combination. So the racket always goes this way outwards, and then while it's dropping, it's probably also moving across. It's not just dropping down like this or like this. It's always in a circular motion. This way, or the backhand goes always outward and like this. And two-handed backhand goes this way and this way. It does not go up and down. One-handed backhand does not go up and down. There is always a circular element of the stroke that helps us accelerate the racket with the hip rotation. Here's one-handed and here's two-handed.
And here's an example of a forehand of a 10-year-old boy that wasn't really using an outwards backswing, but was pulling the arm just straight back and behind his back. He had a pause there and also became quite tense. This is the second most common backswing mistake on all ground strokes. So with this boy, we used the simple drill I showed you before, where the racket is on the ground and he has to swing following the racket's shape. Of course, I make sure that he is focused on the hip rotation too when he accelerates forward. We repeated this drill quite a few times in the following sessions, since it takes quite a few repetitions to change stroke technique. And here's how he was hitting recently.
So now that you have more awareness of the swing path, of the universal swing path that applies to all ground strokes, see if you can see it when the pros are playing or when your coach is playing, when a skilled player is playing. See if you can notice that this always happens, and then practice it. It's very easy to practice it. You can put the racket down and just swing your arm for 1 or 2 minutes. You can do that every day for a couple of minutes just to get a hang of it, just to start to feel how this functions. It works for all ground strokes. Just follow the racket, put the racket down and follow outward, inward and straight, outward, inward. There's again outward a bit, so this way, straight. And it's very easy and very natural because it's based on biomechanics. And your body would like to move like that. It's very easy for the body to move like that. It's very easy to create a swing like that. And so when you practice this for a couple of minutes per day, you're going to see a big improvement in the effortlessness of your strokes. So if that's the case, please let me know how this works for you in the comments below. And if you like this video, please like it, subscribe, and stay in touch.